So as a neuroscientist, what's your take on the companies that are developing like very tailored versions of psychedelics versus just having the psychedelics in general? And a lot of what you said validates the point about how important set and setting is, and someone's like personal context. You can the exact same drug, exact same dose to two different people. There's a different experience. So is there even a need or a value in taking it a step further and having particular synthesized versions of the drugs?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what their goals are. And as far as I know, the drugs that they're trying to develop are things like one company's trying to develop like psychedelic drugs without the trip, which I think is bizarre, and that's a whole nother thing. The experience that you go through, and for example, having memories of when, of some traumatic event when you were a kid, have that come up and have you acknowledging it in this new way and coming to terms with it. Can you do that without having that experience? And do you want to, I think? Because I think it's more personally meaningful and
Mm-hmm.
to see what's happening and able to participate in that processing of yourself. I'm still more of a purist, though. I think these drugs have these extreme potential, and perhaps there are certain things that can be done to reduce physiological things like feeling nauseous or other like unwanted side effects. But I think the psychedelic experience in general, as you can elicit through psilocybin or LSD, we're done with a properly controlled context and all the rest, is extremely, there's a lot of potential there. And it's more so, I think, I'm more concerned about or interested in how to potentiate the experience and guide it in the optimal way through the context, through even like before the experience, during and after the whole thing, and how can we best embed it in a context that facilitates what we want to facilitate. So I think I'm more interested in finding that rather than trying to tinker with the drug and somehow.
Yeah, I guess the one aspect of it that seems somewhat interesting to me as just a casual observer is the ability to just reduce the duration and how that can potentially allow for more therapeutic uses, given that psilocybin, can last 6 to 8 hours and LSD 10 or 12 hours, just reducing that time period. That seems somewhat interesting to me. In terms of all the other things you mentioned about guiding the experience properly. So in your research, are you actually or a part of a team that is like administering drugs and then actually scanning someone's brain during the experience? What is that experience for patients that you're putting through the process?
Yeah. So I haven't done that myself, not yet. So I've been using already collected data, but I know a bunch of research labs are doing this. So I can't comment on the details there. I just know there's a very in-depth and thorough screening beforehand. They're really trying to make the experience as comfortable as possible. There's psychiatrists on deck, and they're everything is done to ensure they have as little anxiety as possible. They feel comfortable. They can get out of the scanner whenever they want. They know what they're getting yourself into, etc. But I can't comment on the details there because I haven't done that yet. But something else I want to say though about the shortening the trip thing that I think is interesting is one thing to take into account is that if you have a difficult experience come up during a psychedelic trip, and we know this from the work of Stan Grof and tons of people, that the best way to help them resolve that is to see it through, is to come to that conclusion. And if we're like creating these drugs which give a 2-hour trip, there's going to be a lot of unprocessed stuff at the end of that can lead to more harm than good. You might come out of it more anxious because it's like you brought it up, but you haven't worked through it. So in some sense, like the full duration of the psilocybin or even LSD might be needed for some people to really process what comes up.